The ProAct Know-How.
Hi, welcome to this ProAct Wednesday webinar where we're going to go through some things to help expats living and working abroad. What we're looking at today is lifting lockdowns, lifting the constraints that we've been living and working under over the last year or so. That's had quite a big impact on our work, living and working abroad. So this is for a free webinar that's open to everyone, but at the end, we go private for existing retained clients who have signed up and retained on a retained client basis at proactpartnership.co.uk. And those people will do a live question and answer session. So we'll unmute the microphones. And if you've got a direct question, we can take that. In today's webinar, we want to cover a few points that is on our agenda regarding lifting the constraints that we've got. First of all, we will cover the timetable. We will look at the budget, which is the next date on the horizon, the UK budget on the 3rd of March, followed by the equinox on the 20th of March. This is the quarter season at the start of spring, end of winter. Then we've got the Western Easter on the 4th of April, the Orthodox Easter on the 2nd of May, a month later. We've got the UK tax year on the 5th of May, so it's the day after Easter for the British taxpayers, and the 5th of April and the whole of April covers the ProAct calendar. If you've not got one, they're available still. There's a few left. It runs through to April 2021. We anticipated that there would be a stuttered start to the new year in 2021. And so we thought, well, we'll run the calendar through from January 2021 through to April 2022. So we can cover all these new years. We've had Chinese New Year, we've had the traditional January the 1st New Year, and we're still living with the heavy COVID restrictions, which are now being lifted, and that's what we're looking at. So if you want to start your new year on the spring equinox or the Western Easter or the Orthodox Easter, we've got those availability. You could, though, and this is something we didn't anticipate, start the calendar on midsummer on the 21st of June, because 21st of June is when the UK are ending their corona restrictions. So we'll look at that in a bit more detail during the webinar. We've got the UK budget next week on the 3rd of March. We will find out their initial response for the next year and how that's going to impact people living and working abroad. We then got the UK schools are going back on the 8th of March. On the 29th of March in UK, people can start meeting outside. So obviously they're trying to avoid pagan festivals around the equinox celebrations, and we avoid that. And the non-essential retailing and the beer gardens, the holiday lets open up on the 12th of April, spookily, a week after Easter. So again, the UK approach is to lock everything down until after Easter to avoid gatherings and infections. The next signpost in the UK is 17th of May, after the Orthodox Easter period, when outdoor social and indoor meetings will commence. So the end of all restrictions in the UK is only on the 21st of June. The first thing we wanted to do is just compare for expats. Now, I can't compare every country in the world. I can give you an opinion. We can look at it in detail. But looking at it from the ProAct office in the UK's perspective, the ProAct office in Cyprus, what that is. So Cyprus is in the EU and it's an island country. So it's got a slightly different approach to the COVID lockdown restrictions than open border countries like Spain and France and Germany. The UK is an island, but it's a much bigger population. It's got its own issues. But the standard things with Corona, the restrictions are all around the world. They generally tends to be the same. The recommendations come from the doctors at WHO, the World Health Organization, and every country is applying a variation on a theme. And so a lot of what each country is applying is saying the same sort of things because it's common sense, so from an early age, we're taught to now, please wash your hands. It just got real meaning nowadays with the COVID pandemic being a new virus that's come upon us. So Cyprus has started to ease and open up locally, whereas the UK is not doing it yet. We talked about the UK starting to open up from the 29th of March. You can't even travel outside your local district in the UK at the moment. So in Cyprus, you can travel around the country if there's a need to for work. So there's a limited on restrictions. So everybody's limited to stay at home, but you have to have your SMS message to confirm that you're going for a limited amount of activities. That's not very much. So in effect, everybody is housebound in the UK, in Cyprus still, have to wear masks out in public and keep distances. And essential retailing is open for both. But the difference with Cyprus is that non-essential retail is now open from the beginning of February, whereas in the UK, non-essential retail doesn't open for until the 12th of April. So from the middle of February to the middle of April, non-essential retail is still closed in the UK, whereas it's open in Cyprus, which means that a lot more people can go to work. So each workplace has to maintain its hygiene and its distance regulations. But if you can work, even if you're working across the country, you can travel it with the appropriate permit for work. So then for expats, there's slightly different constraints as well. For Cyprus, travelling from Cyprus is quite simple. You can travel out of Cyprus. That's the easy bit. The hard bit is finding a flight and a country that will accept you. For UK expats or any expat locked down in the UK, you can't travel at the moment internationally. That hasn't been opened generally. So that's a general advice that is being maintained. If you come into the UK, then you've got a 10-day quarantine at the moment. But that's only for countries that aren't on a safe list. So for Cyprus is on a safe list of countries for the UK. So an expat in the UK, in Cyprus, can travel to the UK and in theory without quarantine. There has to be tests in and out, but the quarantine doesn't apply if you're on a safe corridor location, and that does include the UK and Cyprus. However, UK expats are restricted from getting out, and the airlines are just not putting on the flights, so it does make it quite difficult. For Cyprus, not everybody is allowed in, so they have 3 categories of countries, A, B, and C, and the UK currently is on category B. So the categories A and B countries like Germany, Greece, New Zealand and Australia, so not very many, those people can come in and have to isolate for 72 hours, have the test before and after. Category C countries like the UK, you have to be a resident to come in. So if the expat in the UK has got a resident permit and they have to come to Cyprus because this is where they live, they need to care for their home or their business in Cyprus, that essential travel could be justified outside to leave the UK. You still got to have a test before you leave and when you arrive. And there could still be up to 14 days quarantine applied to that person when they arrive. But in Cyprus now, in February, it's self-isolation. So it's effectively a stay at home rather than a stay in a hotel arrangement. So expats in Cyprus can travel out. Where they can go to depends upon what the different countries' rules are. The UK have got a general blanket ban on the whole population from travelling outside their district and travelling internationally. However, you can make exceptions, but the exceptions for a British expat is that they because they're in category C, is that they have to be a resident in Cyprus, and so they have to have some sort of yellow slip or residency or home and be able to prove that on their travel documents to get there. So it's a bit of a sort of interesting situation. Only from the 29th of March is overseas travel being allowed, and wider travel restrictions haven't actually been signposted in detail, not to my knowledge anyway. So that is the impact. So what I want to look at next in the rest of the talk is how we, with the coping of with Corona and with the lifting of the lockdowns, what we need to do in terms of residency, medical, UK tax, Cyprus tax, and VAT changes with Brexit. So Brexit is still going ahead, and those changes are coming into force for business that is EU-wide. And those changes now having to be made with the added constraint of Corona. So that's a pretty tough ask. It's all good fun. If you're an EU expat from Cyprus or anywhere else in the EU that was living in the UK before the 31st of December 2020, which was the end of the transition period, those expats have still got to the end of June 2021 to register their settled status. And if they've been there more than 5 years, they get that settled status. If it's less than 5 years, they get a pre-settled status. But eventually that will transfer to a settled status. And it's the same for EU expats. If they were in the EU before the end of December, they could register. And what that registration of settled status was EU residency gives them EU citizens' rights as if they belong to a member state for the rest of their lives and for their family, even if their family joins them after, as if they're an EU citizen. So for any expat in Cyprus or anywhere else in the UK, EU, from the UK, their lifestyle doesn't change. Nothing is materially affected by the circumstances of what's happened over Brexit. In the future, any British expat that wants to live and work in the EU, it now is the same rules as anywhere else around the country. It's not some magically different plan. It's just different to the EU. So then to go and live and work in America or South America or Hong Kong or Singapore, you need to have a contract to work and employment to go to get your work visa. That is now the basic requirement within the EU for UK expats and for EU expats going to the UK. And there'll be constraints on that, like what's your salary? Are you an essential worker? So for the UK, the EU expat would need a contract with a salary of around 25,000, whereas before the end of Brexit, that EU expat could go to the UK and look for work and find a job, even if that was a part-time 10,000 a year work. So that's a significant change, and the reverse applies in each individual EU country. So in some countries, that threshold of earnings is a bit lower, but you still need to have that job. One of the ways around it would be somebody of a working age can come to Cyprus or Bulgaria or Portugal and create a company or a business and get that registered and start earning money there. And that contract with that own business could be allowed to be the evidence for the residency visa. Again, changes country by country, but Proact have got know-how and expertise. And if you want to be working remotely after Corona lockdown, and you decide that remotely needs to be across borders and overseas, we can help you get your business and your family relocated into Cyprus or another EU country. So talk to us about that. However, the UK announced this 6-month grace period to start of 2021 in 2019. So anybody who's not got their paperwork up to date in 2020 can still got 6 months to do that. That was not formally announced or arranged in other countries, and certainly not in Cyprus. But unofficially, and from the 1st of January now, it's now been maintained that as far as Cyprus are concerned, they will continue to register UK expats as EU citizens to the end of June this year. The one caveat that's different to before in December is that you have to prove that you were resident or in Cyprus before the end of December. So if you come to Cyprus in 2020, established a residency or registered at the registration office, and you come back within 6 months, then we can still get you registered as an EU citizen terms, which are a bit easier. It doesn't mean that you can't be done post Brexit, but the UK have got special terms at the moment. So any residency issues, contact us at proactpartnership.com. You can go along to our retainer site, and if you log in and register there, as you know, there'll be an increasing amount of special guides and information that are freely available to expat clients to explain these different issues. But when you come to work, if there's two types of people. One might have an S1. Now, the S1 agreement, the UK are maintaining, but before the end of Brexit, it was part of an EU-wide health agreement. Now, that is finished now. That doesn't exist anymore. However, the UK are maintaining S1s for countries which they've got a bilateral agreement. So what they need to do now is make a new bilateral agreement with the EU as a whole, or with individual countries in the EU. So that's not happened so far with Cyprus or other countries. However, any expat that is registered as under the EU citizenship rules, living and working abroad in the EU, if they've got an S1, because they're state working age or they've got a medical condition, they will continue to have their healthcare paid for by the UK for the rest of their life. Even if the expat is not entitled to an S1 today, when they retire in 5, 10, 20 years, they will still be entitled to an S1. So an expat that's living in Spain now could finish a working life or a semi-retired life for 10 years and then get an S1 to get the healthcare, stay living in Spain without any further action or complication. That's all been taken care of under the withdrawal treaty. So those S1 people have got that to look forward to, even if it's to come in the future. Anybody of working age is a different scenario. There needs to be reciprocal health and social insurance agreement. Now, between Cyprus and the UK, for example, there is a reciprocal health social insurance agreement that fell under the EU arrangement. Now that the EU arrangement is gone, that reciprocal social insurance agreement still exists. However, it doesn't cover healthcare. So the UK and the EU would need to make a formal arrangement so that S1s and reciprocal healthcare benefits for people of working age would be changed. And if they're not, then the only way for an expat to get healthcare or state healthcare in Cyprus is for them to come over and register and pay social insurance in Cyprus. Now, in some EU countries, you can register and start paying and you're covered straight away, like Portugal, in Spain. In other countries, you have to be working and contributing to the system for a certain period of time. So that's something to bear in mind, varies country by country. If you've got any questions, contact us, or retainer clients can go to their the online app at proactpartnership.co.uk and start a live chat with one of our Proact client service advisors. If you've got, just wanted to confirm that EU expats in the UK with settled or pre-settled status, healthcare in the UK is residency based. So as soon as somebody is living legally in the UK, they are covered with EU healthcare straight away. Non-EU citizens have to pay a premium tax, a premium social insurance towards healthcare for the first few years of their residency. That will now apply to new expats from the EU going to live in the UK, but it won't apply to anybody that's got settled or pre-settled status. Vis-a-vis, if a UK expat goes back to the UK and take up residence legally as a British citizen, then of course their healthcare rights will start again based upon residency. It's not based upon contributions. And that's a big difference between healthcare system in Cyprus and the UK. In Cyprus, it's based upon being a Cypriot citizen or qualifying through contributions through the social insurance system. There's a healthcare tax been introduced in 2019, which caused a lot of consternation with the corona crisis in 2020. Any expat who has an S1 doesn't have to pay the health tax as well. So it exempts them from that. So that's just something to look out for. If an expat is working in Cyprus and paying social insurance, they will pay health tax with that at a rate of up to 4% or through their employer. So that's something that's going to be qualified. So S1 holders continue to be valid for the rest of somebody's life, living and working abroad. And there's no health tax in Cyprus to pay on that. And you would have thought it'd be logical for me to go on to Cyprus tax now, but I set the agenda to switch on to UK tax because it's budget day next week. And from the start of the new UK tax year on the 5th of April, IR35 rules come into force for all contractors. So how does that impact expats? So if you want to work remotely from your business, especially post-corona, your employer might say work from home. Now, don't get me into a debate about working from home. Working remotely should not be working from home. Working remotely should be working remotely, and we should maintain the difference between work and home. But if you're working remotely, that could be from your home office or it could be from your garden shed. But if it's down the road, why not in another country, in another district, and why not from abroad? And therefore, if there's an agreement with your employer, there's no reason why you can't come and live and work overseas. You've then got the medical constraints and issues that you need to resolve before that. We talked about the state cover, but there is always private healthcare options, and these are important to consider. What's the worst? We need to plan for the worst with the medical and the social care with our expat clients. So IR35 is coming in, and this is an extension of existing regulation for different industries. It now affect anybody, and it affects now anybody who's operating through a personal service company. So if your employer says go and work remotely, That gives you the freedom to go and work anywhere around the world. But if you break the employment contract and you become a contractor, so you're a marketing contractor, a digital marketing contractor, an IT contractor, HR consultant, an accounting consultant, but you've got a self-employed status in your arrangement with your employer. If you're in the UK and you're operating through your personal service company or as a self-employed contractor, you now fall under IL-35 rules, which means that the contracting company has to treat you effectively as an employee. So there is no tax advantage to employers and contractors are working on a self-employed basis, even through their own service company, if it's just a replacement for an employed contract. In other words, they defined somebody working as a self-employed contractor for one company as a sham to avoid employment taxes. So that is something that's due to come in. So anybody that's working for the BBC, for a football club, a sports company, just one employer, and really it's an employer-employee relationship, then that's automatically going to be taxed under the IR35 rules as if they are an employee. So if you're living abroad and you've got a personal service company, you should. Is that going to apply as well? Yes and no. A couple of different scenarios. A UK company is a very simple and efficient and tax efficient way of operating a business. It's got a high VAT threshold before you have to pay VAT, 70,000. So it could be quite effective for everybody to act from. However, under IR35 rules, if the expat is living and working abroad and there's a tie to the UK, then potentially the HMRC can rule it as it should fall within IR35 rules. If the expat is working from an overseas company, from a Cyprus company, a Bulgarian company, a Belize company, those companies have got no association with the UK, and therefore there's no liability to UK taxation. So you can get exceptions for that, and it could be depending upon your work. So if you've got more than one source of income and you can show that the one contractor is not solely yours, then you can avoid the IR35 rules. So it's quite a complex area, and it's a new area, and we're going along to the HMRC and clarifying what the position is, because it's a contracting company that's liable, and if they have to pay that, in retrospect, we don't want these mistakes. We want to pay the right amount of tax and the least that is legally allowable. So let's have a look at that and sort that out. So if you need any more help and guidance on that, to get that exemption and clarification certificate from the HMRC, contact us at productpartnership.com or join us as a retained client at productpartnership.co.uk, and we can sort that work out with you online. So getting back to Cyprus tax now, it was a real mess last year because they introduced the new health tax, Corona came along, and it was also compulsory online returns and changes to the payment system. There's lots of bugs in the system, and they'll continue this year, don't worry. So the majority of taxes for expats and business people are by self-assessment for dividends, for savings taxes, for property rental income taxes, and for health taxes on your worldwide income. Now you can get exemptions for that and exemption certificates, and so if an expat needs to register for that exemption certificate, they can pay 0% on dividends or savings or health taxes or property taxes. And as we mentioned earlier, an S1 tax can be exempt as well. Can exempt people from the health tax. And because Cyprus has no capital gains taxes as well for property or business investment. So So the payment under self-assessment, if not at source, including the social and healthcare taxes for self-employed workers, that is how that tax is paid. If you don't pay those taxes on the due days, then a liability comes up and it arises. And that liability can only be settled by completing a tax return. So in Cyprus, there's not an obligation to fill out an annual tax return unless you've got taxable income. So if you paid all your self-assessed income and your total income is below 19,500 euros, then you wouldn't have an obligation to fill out a tax return until a taxable event arose, such as selling a property or dying and settling in a state. So it's generally good practice to do a tax return as an expat. And then once that tax return is done, any balance of tax can be paid. So a balance of the 2020 tax can be paid once that tax return has been submitted or when the assessment is received. And for 2021, the self-assessed income tax for this year for people earning over 20,000 euros is payable in July and December. So if you need any help and guidance on organising your tax affairs for your business or your property in Cyprus or the EU, or your UK business and property income, contact us at proactpartnership.com. And we offer an online service through our retainer clients and retainer client service, or we have a full consultancy service available as well. So that's a general topic I want to cover during this talk is VAT. So VAT is an EU tax, and over the years, if you've received certain types of goods directly from China, say, or Singapore or America, you have had to pay an import tax or VAT tax on those. Well, the same applies now. So the UK has still got VAT and the EU has still got VAT, but the UK VAT is no longer part of the EU VAT tax scheme. So if you've got goods arriving that you've ordered in the UK into the EU and into Cyprus, you now could have to pay a VAT on receipt. So like you see at the airports, claim back your VAT. Businesses and individuals now have to consider, do they have to make individual tax returns and tax payments for goods in the UK or the EU, and individual reclaims for VAT in the UK and in the EU. So it's actually quite complicated, but it's nothing different to any trade that's ever gone on around the world. But it is a big difference regarding the EU, and it affects any trade with EU expats. So if you're exporting and importing from the UK to Cyprus or the EU, it's worth a consideration whether you need a VAT registration in the EU to minimise your VAT liability, pay the right amount of VAT and maximise your cash flow on that. If you want the help and guidance on getting an EU VAT or business registration, contact us at proactpartnership.com. So that's a summary of what I think is happening with the lifting of the constraints post-Brexit. International travel is restricted, but not the same as the UK. If you've got a residence in Cyprus, you can travel there. You can travel to other countries. So they are making it tough, but as the things progress during the year, we've seen that they will do. Don't forget to order your calendar if you've not got one already. It'll last you through to April next year when, God willing, the corona crisis will be well under control and managed. So we're going into the exclusive for retained clients now. So we'll switch it on for question and answers, and anybody else, the webinar is going to be finishing now.
The ProAct Know-How, brought to you by ProAct.